This role belongs to someone who truly represents the future of this company. My mentor of 15 years announced at the annual shareholders gala. He walked right past me and called my 27-year-old assistant to the stage. The entire ballroom of 300 people erupted in applause. But then I stood up and asked the board chairman one loud question that made my mentor choke on his champagne and sent my assistant to the hospital. Hello, everyone. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Now let me tell you my story. But before that moment, before that question was even spoken, there was the gala. The most important night of my professional life, or so I thought. The grand ballroom at the San Francisco Fairmont was packed with Silicon Valley's elite. Tech investors, board members, venture capitalists, all dressed in their finest. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over tables draped in white linen. A live jazz quartet played softly in the corner. Servers in crisp white shirts glided between tables with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I sat at the head table in the seat reserved for the incoming CEO, wearing my best navy suit and the pearl necklace my mother had given me years ago. I had spent 15 years at Tech Vision Solutions, working my way up from junior marketing associate to senior vice president of marketing. I had built campaigns that tripled our revenue. I had mentored an entire generation of young professionals, and 6 months ago, my mentor David Chen, our CEO, had promised me his position when he stepped down. David was magnetic that night, 52 years old, sharp in his designer tuxedo, working the room like he owned it, which, in many ways, he did. He moved from table to table, shaking hands, laughing that booming laugh that made everyone feel like they were his best friend. He had been my mentor since I joined the company. Brilliant, charismatic, and seemingly committed to lifting women into leadership roles. He was supposed to be one of the good guys. Next to me sat Amanda Russo, my executive assistant for the past 3 years, 27, ambitious, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. I had hired her fresh out of Stanford Business School. I had taught her everything I knew, shared my strategies, introduced her to my contacts, brought her into every important meeting. She was supposed to be learning from me, preparing for her own climb up the corporate ladder. Across the table sat Robert Hayes, chairman of the board, 73, silver-haired, with the bearing of old money. His daughter Jennifer had been CEO before David. She had been the one who really mentored me, who saw something in me that no one else did. Jennifer died 5 years ago in what was ruled a single-car accident on Highway 1, a tragic loss that still hurt to think about. The evening's MC, a local news anchor, called everyone to attention. Time for the big announcement. David walked to the podium, adjusting the microphone. The room fell silent. This was it. The moment I had worked toward for 15 years. My dear friends, my colleagues, my Tech Vision family, David began, his voice warm and confident. Tonight marks a new chapter for our company. As many of you know, I will be stepping down as CEO after 12 remarkable years. The applause was polite, anticipatory. Everyone knew this was coming. I felt my heart racing. I caught his eye and he smiled at me. But there was something odd about that smile. Something I couldn't quite place. Choosing my successor has been the most important decision of my tenure, he continued. This role requires someone who understands where technology is going, not just where it's been. Someone who can navigate the challenges of artificial intelligence, social media, and the changing landscape of digital marketing. Someone who represents our future. A ripple of agreement went through the crowd. I started to stand, smoothing my skirt, preparing to walk to the stage. And that person is someone who has demonstrated extraordinary vision over the past 3 years. His eyes weren't on me. They were looking past me. My blood ran cold. Someone who brings fresh perspective, innovative thinking, and the energy of a new generation. I sat back down, my legs suddenly weak. It is my honor to announce our new CEO, David said, extending his hand toward our table, Amanda Russo. The world tilted. Time seemed to slow and speed up simultaneously. Amanda was already standing, had been standing before he even finished speaking. She had known. Of course she had known. Her face showed perfectly practiced surprise, but her eyes glittered with triumph. She walked to the stage in her red dress and her expensive heels, and David embraced her like a proud father. The applause started slowly, then built. The board members stood. The investors followed. Within seconds, 300 people were on their feet, clapping for my assistant, for the woman I had trained, for someone who had been in the business world for barely 5 years, while I had given 15 years of my life to this company. I sat there frozen in my navy suit, clutching my mother's pearls, feeling my entire world crumble. I had been erased, replaced, made obsolete at 42 years old by someone young enough to be my daughter. Amanda took the microphone. Her voice was confident, rehearsed. "Thank you, David. Thank you to the board for this incredible opportunity. I promise to lead TechVision into the future with innovation, creativity, and the bold thinking that this new era demands. More applause." She looked directly at me then, and I saw it. Not gratitude for the mentorship I had provided, not even guilt, just cold, calculated victory. Something inside me snapped, not with noise, but with clarity. A sudden, crystalline understanding that I had been played, that this had been planned, that my 15 years of loyalty, my mentorship, my trust, all of it had been weaponized against me. I thought about something Jennifer had told me years ago, shortly before she died. "Be careful of David," she had said. "He's brilliant but ruthless. He values loyalty only as long as it serves him." I had dismissed it then, thought she was just stressed, maybe even paranoid. Now I realized she had been warning me. I stood up. The applause was still going. I picked up my champagne glass, and I walked, not toward the exit, but toward the board table where Robert Hayes sat. He had been Jennifer's father. He had appointed David after her death. He had the power to question this. Every step felt like wading through water. My expensive pumps clicked on the marble floor. People moved aside, confused why the passed-over executive was still here, still walking toward the center of attention instead of slinking away in shame. I reached Robert's table. He was applauding, but when he saw my face, something in his expression shifted. A flicker of uncertainty, maybe even recognition. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I spoke clearly and loudly enough for everyone in that ballroom to hear me. "Robert," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Since David has just given my CEO position to someone with 3 years of experience, does this mean the board has decided to investigate the $12 million in missing research and development funds that Amanda helped him embezzle?" The applause stopped, cut off like someone had thrown a switch. The silence that followed was absolute, the kind of silence that rings in your ears. Someone dropped a fork, and the clatter echoed like a gunshot. David choked. Actually choked. The champagne he had been drinking caught in his throat. His face went purple and he doubled over, coughing violently. Amanda went white, not pale, white. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. She looked at me, then at David, then at the 300 pairs of eyes suddenly drilling into her. She stammered. That's not. Her chest started heaving, short, rapid breaths, a panic attack in real time. Her eyes rolled back and her knees buckled. She collapsed right there on the stage, her red dress pooling around her like blood. Chaos erupted. Someone screamed. People jumped from their seats. Robert stood up, knocking over his water glass. "Get the paramedics!" someone yelled. David was still coughing, bent over, his face purple. 2 board members rushed to help him. Others ran to Amanda, collapsed on the stage. I stood there, still holding my champagne glass, watching the pandemonium. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret. Just emptiness. The carefully constructed evening had detonated in seconds. Within minutes, paramedics arrived. They worked on Amanda, checking her vitals. She was breathing, conscious but unresponsive. "Shock," one of them said. "Severe anxiety attack." They loaded her onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her past me, one of the paramedics gave me a look, not quite accusatory, but questioning. Like I had caused this. David finally stopped coughing. He straightened up, his face still red, his eyes watering. He looked at me with pure hatred. "You foolish woman," he hissed quietly. "You just destroyed your career." He turned and followed the paramedics, presumably to the hospital with Amanda. The board members clustered together, whispering urgently. Investors began making hasty exits, clearly wanting no part of whatever scandal was unfolding. Robert approached me. His face was grave. "Sarah, we need to talk, but not here. Come to my office tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Don't be late." He walked away without waiting for a response. The gala dissolved. The room that had been full of celebration minutes ago emptied rapidly. No one wanted to meet my eyes. I was radioactive. The woman who had just made a scene, who had accused the beloved CEO and his chosen successor of embezzlement. In their eyes, I was either dangerously delusional or dangerously right. Either way, best to keep distance. I got my coat from the check. The young woman handed it to me without meeting my eyes. Outside, the San Francisco night air was cold and damp with fog. I hailed a cab. "My apartment," I told the driver. He studied me in the rearview mirror. "You're that lady from the gala, aren't you?" I saw the commotion when I was waiting outside. I said nothing, just stared out the window as the city lights blurred past. My phone started buzzing. Text messages, emails, flooding in. I glanced at the screen. Most were from colleagues, some angry, demanding to know what I was thinking. Others confused, asking if it was true. A few sympathetic, but cautiously so. No one wanted to be associated with me too publicly. Then I saw the news alert. It had already hit the business blogs. TechVision gala ends in scandal. Outgoing VP accuses new CEO of embezzlement. There was a photo of me, mid-question, my face hard and determined, and another of Amanda being wheeled out on the stretcher. The comments were already vicious. "Bitter old woman can't handle being replaced. Pathetic. She's just jealous of Amanda's success. Typical washed-up executive making false accusations. This is why women can't be in leadership. Too emotional." I turned off my phone. When I got home to my small apartment in the Sunset District, I found a notice taped to my door. Eviction notice, effective immediately. By order of building management. I rented from a property company owned by TechVision's parent corporation. Of course, David's revenge was swift. I tried my key in the lock. It wouldn't turn. They had changed it. In the 2 hours since the gala, they had locked me out of my own home. Everything I owned was behind that door. My clothes, my files, my personal items, 15 years of my life. I called the building manager. Straight to voicemail. I called the property company. The emergency line connected to an automated system that transferred me in circles before disconnecting. My phone rang. I answered without thinking. "Sarah Mitchell?" A clipped male voice asked. "This is Gerald Thompson from TechVision Legal. By order of the board, your employment is terminated effective immediately for defamation of character and violation of your confidentiality agreement. Your corporate accounts are frozen. Your stock options are forfeit. Your severance package is void. Do not attempt to contact any TechVision employees or enter any TechVision property. Any further accusations will result in legal action for slander." The line went dead. 15 years. Gone in a phone call. I sat down on the floor of the hallway, my back against the locked door, in my expensive suit and my mother's pearls. I had nowhere to go. No money, no home, no job. I had been erased. I needed to call someone. There had to be someone. I scrolled through my contacts. Most were work colleagues who would never risk their careers for me now. I tried Patricia Kim, a board member I had known for years. She had always been friendly, professional. She answered on the 4th ring. "Patricia, it's Sarah Mitchell. I need help." There was a long pause. "Sarah, I'm sorry, but I can't talk to you. The board has decided this is a legal matter now. I've been advised not to communicate with you. I understand you're upset about not getting the promotion, but making these accusations, it's just not appropriate. I have to go." She hung up. I tried James Rodriguez, my old college friend who worked in venture capital. We had stayed close over the years. His voicemail picked up immediately. I realized he had sent me straight to voicemail. He had screened my call. Then I thought of Marcus Webb. He had been TechVision's CFO when Jennifer was CEO. David had forced him out 3 years ago, right around the time Amanda was hired. The official story was that Marcus retired early, but Jennifer had told me once, before she died, that Marcus had discovered irregularities in the books, that he had been asking questions. that David was threatened by him. I found Marcus's number. He had given it to me when he left, said to call if I ever needed anything. I had never called. Now I had no choice. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah?" His voice was surprised but not cold. "I heard what happened. Are you okay?" "I'm locked out of my apartment," I said, and I was horrified to hear my voice crack. "My job is gone. My accounts are frozen. I have nowhere to go." There was a pause, but not an uncomfortable one. Marcus was thinking. "I live in Palo Alto now," he said finally. 30 minutes south. I have a guest room. Come here. I'll text you the address. We need to talk anyway. There's a lot you don't know. And I think it's time you learned. I took a Lyft to Palo Alto, charging it to my personal credit card that wasn't connected to TechVision. Marcus's house was a modest craftsman in a quiet neighborhood. He met me at the door. 62 now, gray-haired, but his eyes were sharp and kind. He made tea while I sat at his kitchen table, still in my navy suit, still wearing my mother's pearls. I told him everything: the gala, the announcement, my question, the chaos. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker. When I finished, he set down his tea. "Sarah, do you know why Jennifer died? The real reason?" I frowned. "It was a car accident. Highway 1. Everyone knows that." Marcus shook his head slowly. "That's what they wanted everyone to believe. But I don't think it was an accident. I think she was murdered." The word hung in the air. Murdered? Jennifer? But why? "Because she found out what David was doing," Marcus said. "And she was going to expose him. Jennifer and I had been working together for months before her death. She had discovered that David was creating fake research and development projects, companies that didn't exist, research that was never conducted. He would invoice the company for millions. The board would approve it, thinking it was legitimate innovation, and the money would disappear. 12 million over 5 years. "But the board would have noticed," I protested. "How could they not see it? Because Amanda covered it up." Marcus's eyes were hard now. "David hired her specifically for that purpose. She's not just some bright young MBA, Sarah. She's a professional fraud artist. She created the fake documentation, managed the fake companies, made it all look legitimate. That was her real job. Being your assistant was just a cover." I felt sick. The young woman I had mentored, who I had trusted with my calendar and my contacts and my strategies, had been David's partner in crime the entire time. All those late nights she stayed at the office, saying she wanted to learn more. She had been falsifying records. All those questions about how the company worked, what processes were in place. She had been looking for weaknesses to exploit. "Jennifer figured it out," Marcus continued. "She came to me about 2 months before her death, showed me what she had found. We started gathering evidence. We were going to present it to the board, but then she died." He paused, his hands trembling slightly. "The night she died, David had called her, said he needed to discuss urgent business. She drove to meet him at his beach house in Monterey. She never made it. Her car went off Highway 1. The police said she lost control on a curve, but Jennifer had driven that road 100 times. She was an excellent driver. And there were no witnesses. After her death, David made sure I was gone too," Marcus said. "Forced retirement with an NDA and a generous severance package. Paid me to stay quiet about the questions I had been asking. I took it because I had no proof, and I knew if I pushed, I might end up like Jennifer, so I walked away, and I've regretted it every day since." I sat there absorbing this. It was so much worse than I had realized. Not just embezzlement, murder, conspiracy. And I had been groomed as the next target, the reliable Sarah, who never asked too many questions, who trusted her mentor implicitly. I would have been the perfect patsy when things eventually fell apart. "Do you have any of Jennifer's evidence?" I asked. Marcus shook his head. "David cleaned out her office the day after she died. Had it done before the funeral, before anyone could question it. Said it was too painful to keep her things around. But knowing Jennifer, she was thorough. If she found something, she documented it. She would have kept copies somewhere safe." I thought about that. Jennifer and I had been close. She had been like an older sister to me, a mentor when I needed one most. Before she died, she had given me something, a small key on a gold chain. She said it was for safekeeping, that it opened something important. I had worn it around my neck for years, never knowing what it unlocked. After a while, I had put it in my jewelry box at home, which was now locked behind a door I couldn't access. "I need to get back into my apartment," I said. "That's not going to be easy," Marcus warned. "They've probably stationed security. You're persona non grata now. Then I'll wait. I'll find a way." Because suddenly I knew. Jennifer had left me something, a key to a safe deposit box maybe, or a storage unit, something with the evidence we needed. She had known she was in danger. She had prepared. I spent the next week at Marcus's house, planning. During that time, the media frenzy intensified. The business press was calling it the Tech Vision scandal. Amanda made a statement from her hospital bed, calling my accusations baseless and defamatory. David held a press conference, painting me as a bitter, delusional woman who couldn't handle not getting promoted. The board released a statement supporting their new CEO and condemning my unprofessional behavior. Public opinion was mixed. Some people, particularly younger tech workers, dismissed me as another washed-up boomer trying to hold back progress. Others, particularly women my age, who had faced similar workplace betrayals, were more sympathetic. But sympathy didn't translate to help. No one was willing to risk their career by publicly supporting me. The apartment situation resolved itself unexpectedly. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who I had helped numerous times over the years with her groceries and her computer problems, called me. "Sarah, dear," she said in her accented English, "those terrible men came and put all your things in boxes. They put them in storage. But I took your jewelry box before they came. I knew you would want it. Kept it safe. You come get it, okay?" I took a lift to her apartment, hugged her tightly, and retrieved my jewelry box. Inside was my grandmother's ring, some old brooches, and there, on the small gold chain, was the key Jennifer had given me. It was small and brass with a number engraved on it. Not a safe deposit box key. A storage unit key. Number 247. Marcus and I drove to the storage facility Jennifer had used. It was in San Mateo, between San Francisco and Palo Alto. Unit 247 was climate-controlled, expensive. Marcus waited in the car while I went inside. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the door and rolled it up. The unit was small but packed. Boxes and boxes of files, a desktop computer from 5 years ago, external hard drives. Jennifer hadn't just kept copies. She had kept everything. I spent 3 days going through it all, photographing every page, loading every file onto new drives. It was all there. The fake R&D companies, the shell corporations, the invoices for research that never happened, the bank transfers showing money moving from Tech Vision to accounts in the Cayman Islands, and the ledger, Jennifer's personal handwriting, documenting every fraudulent transaction, every fake vendor, every lie. But there was more, much more. I found Jennifer's personal journal, her private thoughts from those last months. One entry made my blood run cold. March 15th, 5 years ago, 2 months before her death, David called today. Said he needs to discuss something urgent at his beach house. Says it can't wait. Something about the R&D concerns I raised. I should feel relieved that he's finally ready to talk about it, but I don't. I feel afraid. There's something in his voice. I'm going to wear my recording pen and make sure someone knows where I am. Robert knows. If something happens to me, he'll know where to look. I flipped ahead frantically, looking for more entries. The next page was dated March 16th, a single line. He tried to kill me. The rest of the page was blank. The journal ended there. I sat in that cold storage unit, holding that journal, and cried for the first time since the gala. Jennifer had known. She had survived one attempt. But 2 months later, on Highway 1, the second attempt had succeeded. And everyone had believed it was an accident. But there was something else in that journal entry. Robert knows. Robert Hayes, Jennifer's father, the board chairman. He had known something was wrong. He had let David stay on as CEO anyway. Either he didn't believe his own daughter, or worse, he had been complicit. I didn't want to believe that. Robert had always seemed kind, principled, but rich men protect their investments. And David had made Tech Vision very, very profitable. I brought everything to Marcus. We spent hours organizing it, creating a clear timeline of fraud. $12 million over 5 years. 23 fake vendors. 47 fraudulent invoices. And Amanda's fingerprints were all over it. Her signatures on the approval forms, her emails coordinating the fake companies, her bank account receiving wire transfers from one of the shell corporations. David had paid her well for her complicity. $400,000 over 3 years. Now we had a choice. We could go to the police. But white-collar crime investigations took years, and powerful men like David had powerful lawyers. Or we could do what Jennifer had planned. Take it to the board, force their hand publicly, make it impossible for them to cover up. The annual shareholders meeting was in 2 weeks, public, required by law, with all board members present. Anyone who owned stock could attend. I still owned 1,000 shares of TechVision, purchased through the employee stock program before I was fired. My credentials hadn't been revoked yet. Marcus owned even more from his time as CFO. We would both attend. But first, we needed insurance. Marcus had a contact at the San Francisco Chronicle, an investigative reporter named Elena Santos, who had built a career on exposing corporate fraud. We met with her at a coffee shop in Oakland, away from Silicon Valley eyes. We showed her everything. She went through the documents with the careful attention of someone who knew how to build an airtight case. "This is extraordinary," she said finally. "This is career-defining journalism. When can I publish?" "Not yet," I said. "We're going to the shareholders meeting first. We need them to have a chance to come clean, to do the right thing. If they don't, then you publish everything." She agreed, reluctantly. But she assigned a photographer and videographer to be at that meeting, just in case things got interesting. The 2 weeks passed slowly. I stayed at Marcus's house, going over the evidence again and again, preparing for every possible counter-argument. I practiced my presentation. I anticipated their denials, their explanations, their attempts to discredit me. I was ready. The morning of the shareholders meeting, I dressed carefully. Not in my expensive power suit. That belonged to the old Sarah, the one who played by their rules. I wore simple black slacks, a white blouse, and a black blazer, professional but not ostentatious. And around my neck, I wore the key Jennifer had given me on its gold chain, a reminder of why I was doing this. The meeting was held in the ballroom of a hotel in downtown San Francisco. Smaller than the gala, but still impressive. About 200 shareholders were present, along with all 7 board members, David and Amanda. She looked thin, nervous. The stress was showing. David looked confident, unworried. He thought he had won. The meeting started with the usual corporate business. Financial reports, board elections, strategic planning, boring, procedural. Marcus and I sat in the back, waiting. When they opened the floor to shareholder questions, I stood up. David's eyes found me immediately. I saw recognition, then irritation, then something like fear flicker across his face. Amanda went pale. "I have a question for the board," I said clearly. My voice carried across the room. Several people turned to look at me. I saw one board member lean over to another, whispering, "That's her, the woman from the gala." "I have evidence of systematic financial fraud at TechVision Solutions," I continued, "evidence of embezzlement, falsified records, and conspiracy to commit fraud. I'm giving the board an opportunity to address this now, publicly, before I release this information to the press and the authorities." The room erupted. Shareholders started talking over each other. Board members looked at Robert Hayes, who had gone pale. David stood up. "This is ridiculous," he said loudly. "This woman was terminated for unprofessional conduct and making baseless accusations. She's bitter about being passed over for promotion, and now she's trying to damage the company's reputation out of spite. Amanda, please call security." Amanda didn't move. She was staring at me, and I saw it in her eyes. She knew I had something. She knew this wasn't a bluff. I pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of the key documents, the fake invoices, the shell company registrations, the bank transfers, Jennifer's journal entry. All of it. I held them up. "I have the evidence. All of it. Jennifer Hayes collected it before she died. She knew what you were doing, David. She knew, and she was going to expose you. Is that why you killed her?" The silence was absolute. Robert Hayes stood up, his face gray. "You have proof?" His voice shook. "My daughter. You're saying David killed my daughter?" "I can't prove murder," I said. "But I can prove she suspected him. I can prove she documented his fraud." I can prove she was afraid. And I can prove she died 2 months after confronting him. The rest is for the police to investigate. But this, I held up the financial records. This I can prove absolutely. David's confidence cracked. He looked at Amanda. She looked back at him, and I saw the silent communication between them. They were calculating, trying to decide whether to deny, to confess, to run, do something. David hissed at her, "Fix this." And that's when Amanda broke. She stood up, backing away from the table. "I didn't know," she said loudly. Her voice was high, panicked. "About Jennifer, I mean. I didn't know about that. He never told me about that. I just helped with the financial stuff. He said it was standard offshore tax planning. He said everyone does it. I didn't know it was illegal. I didn't know—" David's face went purple. "Shut up," he snarled at her. "Right now, shut up." But Amanda was spiraling, the panic taking over. "You said it would be fine," she said, her voice breaking. "You said we'd give Sarah the interim CEO role for 6 months, let her take the blame when the board found the accounting irregularities, and then I'd step in as the clean replacement. You said she'd be the scapegoat, not me, you promised." And there it was, the full confession. I hadn't been passed over because I was old or unqualified. I had been set up, groomed for 15 years to be the perfect fall guy. They had planned to promote me, let me run the company just long enough for the fraud to surface, then blame me for it, paint me as the corrupt executive who betrayed everyone's trust, destroy my reputation while they walked away clean. The shareholders erupted. Board members were on their feet. Robert Hayes looked like he might have a heart attack. Security was running toward David and Amanda, but not to escort me out, to detain them. The police arrived within minutes. Someone had called them. Elena Santos and her photographer were capturing every moment. David was screaming about lawyers, about being set up, about how this was all a misunderstanding. Amanda was crying, hyperventilating, the same panic attack from the gala returning. They were both arrested, handcuffed right there in front of 200 shareholders and a television camera. The board called an emergency meeting. They asked me to stay. For the next 3 hours, I walked them through every document, every transaction, every lie. Marcus corroborated everything from his time as CFO. We showed them Jennifer's journal, her suspicions, her fear. Robert Hayes cried when he read his daughter's words. "I'm sorry," he said to me. "To everyone." I didn't believe her. She came to me with concerns and I told her she was being paranoid, that David was brilliant and would never betray the company. I chose business over my own daughter. And it got her killed. The board voted unanimously to terminate David with cause and rescind Amanda's appointment. They offered me the CEO position, effective immediately. Full salary, full benefits, full control to clean up the mess David had created. I looked at them, these 7 people who had enabled a murderer, who had let greed blind them to the truth, who had thrown me away without a second thought when it was convenient. "No," I said. "I don't want to run a company that let this happen. I don't want to be CEO of an organization that valued profit over my mentor's life." Robert Hayes leaned forward. "Then what do you want?" "Justice," I said. "I want Jennifer's death investigated properly. I want David and Amanda prosecuted to the fullest extent. I want every penny of that stolen money recovered and donated to organizations that support women in technology, in Jennifer's name. And I want the board to resign. All of you. You enabled this. You're done." There was a long silence. Then Robert Hayes nodded. "You're right," he said quietly. "We'll resign, all of us. The company needs leadership that remembers integrity matters more than stock prices." The other board members looked uncomfortable, but they agreed. One by one, they voted to step down. In the end, the board installed an interim CEO from outside the company while they searched for permanent leadership. David and Amanda were both charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. David faced additional charges in Jennifer's death after a new investigation found evidence of tampering with her car's brake system. He's currently serving 15 years in federal prison. Amanda cooperated with prosecutors and received 7 years. The company survived the scandal, barely. Stock prices plummeted initially but recovered when the new leadership implemented real oversight and transparency. The $12 million was recovered from offshore accounts and used to establish the Jennifer Hayes Foundation for Women in Technology, providing mentorship and funding for women pursuing careers in tech. As for me, I didn't go back to corporate life. I used my experience to start a consulting firm helping companies identify fraud and build ethical cultures. Marcus partnered with me, and we're doing good work, helping other whistleblowers, supporting people who choose integrity over expedience. It's not as lucrative as being a CEO, but I sleep better at night. Sometimes people ask me if it was worth it. 15 years of my career destroyed, my reputation dragged through the mud, months of uncertainty and fear. Was justice worth all that? I think about Jennifer, who died trying to do the right thing. I think about all the young professionals who would have been betrayed if I had stayed silent. I think about Amanda and David in prison, unable to hurt anyone else. And I know the answer. Yes, it was worth it. Not because it was easy, but because some things matter more than career success or financial security or social approval. Integrity matters, truth matters, justice matters. And if we don't stand up for those things, especially when it costs us something, then what are we really working for? So I ask you, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent, kept your career, pretended you didn't know, or would you have risked everything for the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue sharing these important stories. Thank you for listening.